thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hi, this is Tony Hudson, and you're listening to Robbie Vegas on All Bets Are Off. I'm from Texas Chainsaw 3, so take a listen.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the Rockstar Robbie Vegas with another brand new and video episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast.
We hope, if everything goes right. Oh, sorry, I wasn't introduced.
I didn't get there yet. You all know my co-host.
What's up? It's your boys. Yes. Robbie wanted to come and check out my cool studio here. How do you like it?
It's a pretty sweet setup.
You know what I got to say? All I got to say is you, bro. He just wanted to come check out my fun toys.
That's all.
And, of course, we are joined by...
Pickles on my pickles.
Right here, actually.
Oh, she's in between your legs right now. Hey-oh.
Hey-oh.
So what's up?
So,
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's crazy because, well, first of all, I got to apologize for last week because we were supposed to have... What are we doing?
Wait, go ahead. I was just going to do this because this is perfect.
We were supposed to... A very special guest, and Zoom sucks at their jobs. It's pretty bad, but we're going to redo it, and I won't announce it yet, but you guys are going to like him. He's a great guy, great drummer. That's the hint.
Yeah, you better hope that Peter Criss comes back.
Yeah, I better. Yeah, speaking of cats.
Wasn't Peter Criss. I don't want to start any rumors,
Yeah.
but or we could say Robbie only using Zoom for recording.
First time I ever gave them full responsibility and they let me down. I don't know if I even said that right. I stumbled over my tongue there.
That's okay. Well, you're stuck with me. There's no edits.
That's true. That's
so
true.
this is the roller coaster. It's at the top.
That's fine.
Wasn't that a quick Kiss quote? Did she just move the camera?
Yeah, she did. She's actually looking up at the camera right now and probably going to move it. Yep.
You asshole. You.
Pickles on my pickles.
That was great.
She doesn't want to be part of this.
She totally did that on purpose.
She's mad that Jay and Adam aren't here.
Weird.
Weirdo. Anyway.
Should we tell everybody what we're talking about today?
I forgot already.
The 25-year anniversary of the Montreal Screw Job.
I didn't even think of that till right then.
Man, this is going to be a fun conversation because, we were alive for this, whereas a lot of people now tell me that they were too young to know.
Oh, wow. And, some of your students and
yes,
such?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
And some guys that I'm in locker rooms with are like, yeah, I was born like that year or like the year after, but I heard it was pretty crazy.
Oh, my Lord. So the title of this episode is Who Screwed Brett?
Right.
Well, there's only one answer.
Brett screwed Brett.
And there it is.
That's the only answer.
Normally I would say thank you, Vince McMahon, for being here and saying that, but we're caught. We're busted.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. But just remember.
Brett screwed Brett.
Well, I guess we'll find that out.
We will.
Because this is going to be an in-depth 4-hour podcast.
Well, I got to say, I do remember this happening because I was watching it live when it happened.
So you were 10?
I was 10. Yeah, I was super young when it happened. But the weird thing about watching it at 10 years old is knowing that something really wrong happened, like that something was bad.
And you were watching the live?
Yes.
The live, I almost said podcast. No, you were not watching the live podcast.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know who had a live podcast in 1997.
Mean Gene with his telephone stuff.
Piper's Pit.
Okay, fair enough. That's what podcasts were. I was not watching it because even though I even remember saying that I only got the Survivor Series podcast, but I don't believe I was watching this one live. And being so much older at 11, no. But like I was, I just kind of like, I didn't get it. You know, like I didn't know what was going on. I'm not going to sit here and act like a mark and like I understood there was all this backstage drama until, after.
No, I didn't understand that part. I just knew that something went wrong because Vince McMahon was out there and then the bell rang. And it was just it wasn't a wrestling finish. And of course I wouldn't have called it that at 10 years old, but I just remember being really confused. And then, Brett throws the fit. The camera keeps rolling. He writes WCW in the sky.
I actually have live audio from that. Let's. Oh, there he is. Oh, Bret Hart. Come on, bro.
Oh,
Come on, Bret.
Brett screwed Brett.
Well, Well, I'll tell you what. The next night on Raw, when DX came out and they were making fun of Brett with the midget and the Brett mask, then it started to all feel like wrestling again. You know, it was like they were treating it as if Brett would be back to defend himself.
Well, for having no, yes, there was interwebs, but nothing even similar like today. Nothing even similar like 15 years ago.
That was back when Sunny was the most downloadable woman on AOL.
She still, too soon. too soon. Oh, man. Her.
Brett screwed
Sunny. Okay.
Yes.
Allegedly.
So we heard.
Sunny days.
Sunny days.
I'm gonna make you want to buy one of these.
I already do. But how old were you when I know shortly after that the business changed. Vince pulled the veil back a little bit. And, when did you start to realize that this was like a thing?
Okay, so there's some misinformation about that stuff. Because he started pulling the veil back earlier because I think it was like 88, 89, they were paying all these taxes to be considered a legit sport.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. So he actually started pulling the veil back then so he didn't have to pay those taxes.
Yeah.
And all the other small promotions were mad at him. So but I didn't know any of that shit at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I just didn't understand, and I thought everything was just real or part of the show. And for the simple fact that, so this is already after all the defects, all the Hogan and the Luger showing up on Nitro and the outsiders showing up on Nitro and all. So this is way after that.
Yeah.
Year and a half, years after that.
Yeah.
So the fact that I don't think it was the next night in Raw, I think it was the week later. But either way, whenever he did that famous interview, the old
Brett screwed Brett.
Interview.
Brett screwed Brett.
Oh, he really
Twice.
wants to say that.
Yeah. Whoops. It was mind boggling, or a term that I like, mind bottling, because it was like, what are they talking about? He's talking about Ted Turner. He's talking about WCW.
Yes, he was.
And again, I didn't know, who Ted Turner was. All I know was Billionaire Ted.
Yep.
From those sketches. But the stuff that he was mentioning, WCW stuff, it was so weird to me. And he was just easily coming. Actually, I have the last 30 seconds of that interview. Let's listen to that real quick. This is the end of Vince McMahon's major interview.
Sympathy. I have no sympathy for Brett whatsoever. None. I have no sympathy for someone who was supposed to be a wrestling traditionalist, not doing the right thing for the business that made him, not doing the right thing for the fans and the performers and the organization who helped make him what he is today. Brett made a very, very selfish decision. Brett's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. Brett screwed Brett. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Brett.
That's powerful from Vince.
It is. And, to be completely fair, looking at it from a point of view as somebody who's inside the wrestling business currently, I agree. And when I first started hearing about and understanding what they were talking about, I agreed then. And not because I'm a Shawn Michaels fan, but because it made sense to me. I thought it's weird to say, and to this day I still feel this way, it's weird to say, I can't lose the belt in Canada. You just covered an entire country. It's not like he was in his home state, his hometown, his home arena.
Yep.
He literally said, I cannot lose this belt in an entire country. And honestly,
she's playing with it.
She's going to knock the camera down.
You're on camera babysitting duty.
Yeah, I know. She was over here, and then she got mad because I wouldn't touch her. Talking about a cat, by the way, people.
Pickles on my pickles.
Are you?
Hey there, little fella.
Anyway, sorry. Okay, go on. But you're right. The whole country aspect of it, I refuse to. That wasn't it.
Yeah.
It was because it was Shawn.
It was because it was Shawn, 100%. And I believe that for a fact that is the sole reason why he wouldn't do it is because it was Shawn.
Yeah, because they were fighting with each other, ripping each other's hair out. Shawn was being a bitch. Brett was being a bitch. I mean, they weren't healthy people.
No, both guys were being shitty. And whether, they were being shitty to everybody or just to each other, it doesn't matter. Because in this situation, they're the two people that mattered, and they were both doing things that would be considered unprofessional in the professional wrestling business. And, you know, I've read Sean's book. I've read Brett's book. I've watched Wrestling with Shadows. I watched Dark Side of the Ring that recently covered the Montreal Screw Job within the last few years.
AKA Dark Side of the Ring, AKA WWE hit pieces.
Yes.
Fucking terrible.
Right.
Like, they're terrible. Sorry, go on.
No, I do agree with that too. But, you know, after reading the books and the articles and watching the shows on it and seeing the backstage stuff, I mean, how crazy was it that they just happened to be filming a documentary when all of that went down? Which leads me to the next thing I want to mention before we even dig into it, is Scott Hall always said he thought, and to this day, just before he died, still thought it was a whole work that everybody was in on.
Well, that is an interesting topic we will get into on this. And it's like, think about it today. Like, think about like the backstage news today with like CM Punk and stuff like that. Even CM Punk, who I think is one of the biggest crybaby losers in the world. I mean, he still seemed like he was trying to do business, but maybe he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say.
But who did CM Punk look up to?
Right.
Right? And who did a lot of these new, well, they're not new anymore, they're older than us, but like those guys look up to, they're Bret Hart marks.
Yeah.
And Bret Hart created this generation of wrestling, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
He created both of it.
Yeah. And, well, let's backtrack it just a little bit because we didn't even say what truly transpired here. We just kind of assumed that everybody listening would be.
Let's take it back. Let's take it back to the top. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. This is Lauren Marie Taylor, creator and host of the Not the Final Girl podcast. Okay, so every horror fan remembers the final girl, right? You know, the one who can outrun and outsmart the Jasons, the Michaels, the Chuckies. I think you get it. But what about the girls and, the guys who met with an untimely end? Those of us who were tortured and tripped, dragged and killed. Don't we deserve some props? As Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2 and Sheila in Girls Night Out, I know what a drag it is to succumb to those masked and wardrobe-challenged killers. To not be the final girl. On my new podcast, I'll be chatting with other women of horror who share the same fate. Special guests include those final girls as well as the writers and directors who created our characters, only to give us an early expiration date. And if they play nice, we'll let some of those crazed killers of horror tell their side of the story. So join me, Lauren Marie Taylor, on the Not the Final Girl podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get the alerts when the episodes drop. Thanks for listening. Keep your doors locked and stay out of the woods.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Bret Hart. Had the year before, a few months before, got a huge 20-year deal. By WWE to be part of it, wrestle for the next 5 years, whatnot, and then be backstage for the next 15. Yeah. Somewhere around those parameters. We don't do our research here because that. So he signs that deal. Then a few months later, Vince McMahon comes to him and is like, "Hey, pal, I cannot afford to pay you this anymore." Mm-hmm. Okay. So business-wise, he is giving him a chance to go to WCW.
Yes.
Where he knows that they're overpaying wrestlers.
Yes.
Everybody wants to talk about Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, but they're overpaying people like Virgil.
Yeah.
Right? And like these crazy. So he knows he can't afford, he knows that he can pay Bret Hart more money.
Yes.
So Vince isn't, I'm not trying to just be like, oh, he's such a gracious guy, because he and himself is trying to save his company money and stuff like that.
By letting Bret go, yeah.
So, it did seem like a good deal for both people.
It did. They were both going to get something out of it. Bret was going to make a substantial amount of money to provide for his family, and Vince was going to save a substantial amount of money, because at the time...
Bret was going to make more money.
He was. And, Bret was making good money with Vince to begin with, but Vince wasn't, in the WWE in general, weren't at the top of their game yet, at least as far as the 90s go. They had their success and, things hit a lull for a little while and the company wasn't doing great. Did he still have a assload of money? Sure. But you're also paying how many guys weekly to wrestle on your show?
Bret, Mr. Greatest Wrestler in the World, it was the lowest time of WWE. And you and Diesel are the top guys.
Right.
And that's what it is. Everybody like lays it on Diesel because that was the lowest of the low, other than Roman Reigns 2020. But other than but like so Diesel, yes, is the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
Great band, by the way.
For sure.
And but like
Canadian.
Bret, yes, probably Bret Hart, Marks.
Probably.
But like right after was Bret. Like it's not like and then everyone says Shawn too. Okay, that was their era. Throw in the Undertaker. I mean, that's the new generation era.
That was the new generation era
with
yeah.
Razor, right? Those are the five guys.
Yeah.
Or as I like to call it, pre Stone Cold.
Yeah, it was pre-Attitude Era for sure.
Yeah.
That era of guys was bleeding into the Attitude Era. You know, obviously Shawn played a big role in ushering in the Attitude Era, and you know Diesel and Razor and Bret were all gone.
But so did Bret though, because
when he cut that first promo where he shoved Vince McMahon on his ass and stuff, that was the turning point from the new generation to the Attitude
the
Era.
whole Canada versus America angle. And so this is going side by side with the fact that Bret is very sad and self-conscious that Shawn is Vince's new boy toy.
Yeah.
Because live looking at Vince, but like he should have been.
Yeah.
He's younger. He's the time for the next guy, and that's what happens in wrestling.
Just because he was younger?
Bret was the guy. This was 1997.
Yeah.
What year did Bret win his first world championship?
Oh, Jesus.
1992.
Yeah.
So it's been 5 years. And when did Shawn win his first one? 1996.
Yeah.
So Shawn is the new guy on the block. And it wasn't that long. So actually, the new guy coming up is Stone Cold, and everybody knows that right now. That's going to be the guy. So it's like, it really wasn't Shawn didn't really have a long...
No, it was memorable. It wasn't long. Shawn won his first
That's
one in
what I tell all the
96.
ladies.
Shawn won his first one in 96 at WrestleMania, and Stone Cold won his 2 years later from Shawn at 98.
And 97 was a clusterfuck because of... on both of their parts. So
there's still a lot of question about what happened at that Mania that was supposed to be.
Oh, we're in 97. Let's talk about it. Well, you had the clusterfuck of the 1997 Royal Rumble, which is still a goof to watch. Stone Cold wins, but throws Bret Hart out after he was thrown out, but the refs didn't see it. Okay. And then Stone Cold wins.
Yeah.
Weird. Shawn wins the title from Sid, and then Sid loses the title the next day, right?
Yes.
And then wasn't Bret?
No, I think it was.
No, because it had to get back on Sid. Maybe it was Shawn gave up the title, and then Sid won it, and then Bret won. It was something weird like that.
Yeah, there was a weird little fluctuation of the heavyweight title.
Oh,
there.
You know what it was? I remember now. Kind of. Shawn had to give up the title because whoops. Okay, so Shawn had to give up the title. Then Bret won it somehow. Then they had that final four because it was held up again.
Yes.
So it was this weird thing, and then Bret ends up, and then Sid ends up with the title. So I think Bret had it for like a day, and then Sid won it at the final four. That's how Sid rolled into.
No, Sid wasn't in that match.
Well, because Sid rolled into WrestleMania.
Yeah, but the final four match was Undertaker.
See, it's so weird.
It was Undertaker, Vader, Bret,
You're right.
and Stone
He
Cold.
wasn't.
Sid wasn't in that match.
So somehow Sid ends up with the title.
Yeah, Sid ends up with the title and carries it into.
Carries into Mania. Taker wins. You have the one of the greatest matches ever between Stone Cold and Bret, which carries them through the summer.
Didn't Bret win the title and have the figure four on Sid in a singles match, and Stone Cold screwed him out of it?
Could have been. I don't remember.
It was a Raw thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just have this vision of Bret with Sid and the Sharpshooter and Stone Cold interfering in the match and costing Bret the title, and then they go on to have their famous match at 13.
Which was phenomenal, the double turn. And
which was a part of ushering in the Attitude Era also.
Right, because then you get Bret Hart on camera and off camera.
Yes. Yes.
Doing it. So he's being the most Bret Hart because he's, I'm sorry, we've said it plenty of times, a huge crybaby.
Yeah. And the backstage turmoil is really building up between Shawn and Bret. They really hate each other.
They do not like each other.
They don't want to work together.
But they have the best matches.
But they have the best matches, right? Like the Iron Man match is my favorite match of all time, hands down to this day. Obviously, I'm talking about the original Iron Man match.
Well, and I think Stone Cold's arrival has a lot to do with this too, because they see, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
They see what's brewing, especially that summer, especially after WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
But then to be fair, I mean, Stone Cold won the title or won the Rumble. So they see that he's brewing, but it was almost best for him because they just focused on each other.
Yes.
And they left him out of it.
Yeah.
So he was able to avoid their politics because they were totally politicking backstage the whole time.
And was this a double ego thing? Sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
Sean wanted to be on top. Brett wanted to be on top. Did they both have a certain stake and a certain claim to that spot? Yes, absolutely. But wrestling needs multiple people to be on top.
Yep.
So it was okay that they could both be on top.
Yep, you're right. and it was just like, and Brett was, it was, and it had that such weird quality where like you think of 97, you think of Brett and Sean, but they weren't the program in 97. No. It was Brett and Stone Cold.
Yes.
You think about one of the best pay-per-views ever, the Canadian Stampede, and like that arena was electric.
Yes, that's one of my favorite matches of all time, not because the match was so technically sound or that there was a lot of cool stuff going on. The crowd was so hot that no matter what everybody in that match did, it got a huge reaction, and it was just a fun match to watch. It almost felt like everybody that was watching was a part of it. It was insane.
And this whole America versus Canada angle was brilliant.
Absolutely.
Was brilliant. Different places of the not the country, the continent.
Yeah.
Require different reactions.
Yeah, Brett was only a heel in America. Yep. Literally everywhere else, he was a face.
Yep, and it's the exact opposite for Sean.
Yeah, and that's never been done.
Yeah,
since or before.
It's just too hard now.
It's too hard.
And and for that, it wasn't about Brett. I mean, it wasn't about Sean. It was about Brett.
Yeah,
because Brett was such a beloved Canadian figure.
Yes, he was,
and that's what it is. Like,
I think he still is.
I'm sure because it's Bret Hart, and they probably hang on every word he says. So then you have your Canadian Stampede, then you get into SummerSlam. Brett will never wrestle again in America if he loses the match to Undertaker. So right by that statement, who's going to win.
Yeah, of course. And they did it brilliantly
with Sean. Yeah,
with Sean as the special guest referee,
and
who actually, the chair shot causes the loss, which sets Sean into a feud with the Undertaker that spawned some of the greatest moments of the year, I think, as far as like their match at Ground Zero, the Bad Blood, where Kane makes his debut in the first ever Hell in a Cell.
That's gotta be Kane! My God, that's gotta be Kane! Sorry, we talked about it, man. Hit the bell.
That wasn't Kane, that was Undertaker.
That's fine. We talked about
Get Sean's too.
Okay. Want to hear another one I have queued up? This one's queued up for the Fantasy Football Bros podcast, but it works. Sorry, okay.
You know what sticks out about the Bad Blood feud with Sean and Taker that blows off with Kane coming back is that was the match of that pay-per-view, and Brett was the champion.
Yeah.
Sean was the European champion.
That's true.
Brett faced the Patriot.
That's right, Dell.
Yeah.
I remember those matches.
Yeah.
Dell, that was a big thing, too, because who the fuck's the Patriot? All of a sudden, he's headlining pay-per-views. Why? America.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. It wasn't because he was great. It was because he was an American hero.
And was that the main event, or was this Hell in the Cell?
I think the Hell in the Cell was, but don't quote me on that.
Well, that probably makes sense because Brett was probably crying about it. Like
that's what I was getting at.
I'm the champ.
Brett was the champion, but Sean had the biggest match of that pay-per-view, and I'm sure that chapped Brett's ass and didn't help things backstage.
But at the same point, Brett, your boy Undertaker also has the biggest match on the pay-per-view.
That's right.
And the whole point was to get his feud with Kane going.
Yes, it was. It was a blow-off for Sean and Taker to get Taker into what he was going to be doing up until Mania and then some.
And what draws more in a crowd? Bret Hart, Del Wilkes, or Undertaker and Shawn Michaels in a Hell in a Cell?
In a Hell in a Cell for the first time.
Right.
When people are going, what the fuck is a Hell in a Cell?
Use your brain, Brett.
Right.
They make brains in Canada.
Well, we'll ask Mitch LaFon about that.
You just pissed off a whole country.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I love Canada. I'm going back there December 4th to wrestle for Courage Pro Wrestling in Hamilton at the Hamilton Convention Center featuring Allison Kay. We'll see you there.
Who are you wrestling?
It's a tag team. It doesn't matter what. Couple of guys.
some douches.
Yeah. I'm teaming up with some fucking Viking.
Oh my goodness. I don't have any drops for that. Wait, I got one for him. Wait, not that one. Hang on. There you go.
Sorry, Dillson.
I forgot a drop that I was going to do earlier when you announced me. I was going to be like, hey, everybody, this is Chaz. I'm back! But I couldn't do it. Okay.
Well, now you did.
I did it. Now it's there. All right, so finally, we're getting really in, and this is like a history lesson for some people. Just so I'm
some
going
of the younger,
some of y'all youngins. I'm going off of.
Hey there, little fella.
Sorry, I'm going off of I mean, I've heard so many podcasts about this.
Yeah.
Bruce Pritchard's, Jim Cornette's. Oh, hey, hang on, Jim Cornette. Okay, Bruce Pritchard, Jim Cornette, Jim Ross, like
Yeah.
Chris Jericho with Dave Meltzer.
Oh, you should have a worse sound for Meltzer.
Which I bet you there's going to be a bunch of them popping up now. Because that 20,
Yeah,
the
I'm
25th.
sure.
25th
We're
is a
not the
big
only
deal.
one with this
Right.
idea.
So I have gotten so much information over the time on this that I feel like I'm almost a goddamn expert about this. And like I didn't even know about it just because I went through this long situation, this long period of my life where I just was like consuming all these wrestling podcasts,
Yep.
right? And 5 years ago, I was doing that and that was the 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
So like I got so much information. So like what I'm coming from is from all these different podcasts. And I don't know what your knowledge stems from of it.
Everything. I've read everything. I've read both books. I've watched all the documentaries.
Yeah.
Like any time that it gets talked about, I want to hear it because it still intrigues me in a weird way, even though I really know it like the back of my hand and I've heard it all before. I'm still always intrigued by what people have to say about it because it is so. It's like one of those things in wrestling that if you weren't like alive when it happened, I don't think you truly understand the magnitude of it. Like watching it back after you've heard about it a million times doesn't do it justice.
And to be fair, we didn't understand the magnitude then.
No, we didn't because you were 11, I was 10, and
Our dirt sheets weren't coming yet.
right. AOL dialed up.
I don't even know if I was on the internet yet. I think I got
wasn't.
on the internet more in like 98.
Yeah, I was going to say I wasn't. I know I wasn't for sure. I don't even think 99 maybe.
And I wasn't looking up dirt sheets.
Right.
In 1998, I was more like, I wonder if there's any girls in the NFL chat room on AOL.
No dirt sheets.
Wasn't.
You were
Or
dirty in
girls.
sheets.
Or girls.
or girls.
there wasn't any of that stuff in the NFL chat rooms.
No.
Actually, I didn't even have AOL. I had CompuServe.
Yeah, you were an OG.
I was OG.
I don't even think I had a computer until like 2000.
So we get there finally. So here's my knowledge of how things got going. Bret Hart, we can't pay you. Okay, well, what are we gonna do? Well, maybe we'll go make you rich in WCW.
Yeah.
Go talk to them. Okay, okay, I'm gonna go over there. All right, well, we got to get the belt off you to Sean. No, we have to, Bret. We have to. No, this is how it's done. This is how it's done, Bret.
You have to drop the title, Mr. Hart. You have to drop the title. So, hi Pickles. They take it to Sean, and now as far as my knowledge base goes, Sean did not come up with the idea. Triple H did.
Okay, so remember there was a long time for the first 20 years of this, everybody was denying the blame.
Everybody.
And then the last 5 years, everybody's taking credit.
Yes, because now it's become a thing where everybody wants to say, I came up with the screw job because it's the most talked about thing in wrestling.
What are you doing, Pick? What's up, girl?
Are you a Bret Hart fan or something?
Yeah, geez. I wonder if she's on camera right now.
I don't know.
She always finds her way on camera. Just don't step on the computer.
But here's the thing. I also heard back then, too, that Vince hinted around at it and Triple H kind of finished the thought. So it sounds to me like Vince and Triple H are on the same page.
Okay, so what and I agree, and I've always heard that Triple H was involved somewhat because he was there with Shawn. So obviously Shawn was a part of this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, from anything I've ever heard, it doesn't sound like Shawn was sitting there throwing the idea out. No. It was more like, Shawn was more like, fuck him.
Yeah. Like the idea was presented to him and he said, I'll do it. So
I kind of believe it a little bit that Vince came up with it. I mean, he's the fucking boss.
Yeah.
You can't say Vince is the most mean, evil man in the entire world, but he didn't come up with the screw job.
Right.
You can't play both sides of the fences.
Right.
Now, I also believe some truth that Triple H had something to do with it too, because that's been fairly consistent.
Yes, that's been something that I've heard from numerous, interviews from different, wrestlers that have said, yeah, it was Hunter.
Now, Bruce Pritchard has always claimed he had no idea, nothing to do with it. And that's what everybody else says. Same thing with Jim Ross. Mm-hmm. The only person that there's two people that we haven't talked about. We mentioned Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Vince Russo.
I don't believe that Vince Russo had anything to do with this. I think Vince Russo gets off on making people think that his ideas, everything was his idea. I really do.
It could very well be, but I could also see him just as attitude like, fuck him, bro. Just screw him. I can 100% believe and agree that Vince Russo said that, but he didn't even know what he meant.
You're right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So he could have been the guy that said it.
Yeah.
And started all this. But I don't think he sat there and like came up with the idea. Now this is Jim Cornette's side of it. He's such and as like fucking stupid as he is, and I hate Jim Cornette so much. I just, he's a very wealth of knowledge person. When it comes to wrestling, and he's a walking encyclopedia of it. And I heard on one of his podcasts when he was breaking it down that it was his idea, of course, but because this happened before, and I don't remember the wrestlers in 1942 in Montreal, nonetheless, that this happened before, and so I think it is possible that they all came up with it. And it's nobody's thing. I think it's possible that Vince Russo just said something and it got the conversation rolling.
Yeah, I can 100% see that. But I think that, any way you slice it, it comes down to Vince.
Yes.
Vince has to make the final call, the final decision on that, minus the referee.
Bret screwed Bret.
And I also still believe that. At this point in time, there is a documentary starting to be filmed about Bret Hart. And it turns into what we now know as Wrestling with Shadows, which turns into a documentary about the lead up to the Montreal Screw Job.
Not at this time, like a year before this.
Yeah, it's been going on.
So so this goes back to where we started, where Bret's just signing his deal.
Yes.
So this documentary, and this is where your boy Scott Hall's, conspiracy comes in. It's that during this 1 year filming where this film crew has unprecedented access
to everything
that's never been around before.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all this shit goes down in that one.
Correct. Now, from my own personal life, I'm super good friends with who was Bret's wife at the time, who is no longer Bret's wife, and she didn't know anything about this happening. So,
know about what?
That the screw job was a thing. So,
okay.
If it was a work, she was also in the dark, but also makes me lean towards, well, maybe it wasn't, because would you keep your wife in the dark about something like that?
It's hard for me, and I love conspiracies on any rate. We don't have to get into political conspiracies, just any form of weird conspiracy. And this is a perfect one, because it doesn't fucking mean anything. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't fucking mean anything.
not to the real world anyways.
Right.
To some of us,
that's why this is a fun one. There's all sorts of sports conspiracies that are fun, but so I find it hard to believe that it's a work. I'm not yet. I find it hard to believe it's a work because Bret Hart is such a goddamn mark for himself that he would not put himself in this situation.
Yes.
To let Vince and Shawn have an upper hand on him.
Right, because it did look like that. If it was a work, Bret comes out of it looking bad.
Yeah.
Because he looks like the big bitch crybaby, and they had to strip him of the belt.
Yeah.
So you're right. I don't think he would let that happen. I don't think he would have kept his wife in the dark about it if it was happening. I don't think WCW was in on it so that everybody's ratings would get better. I don't think any of that.
Well, the conspiracy that it's not that everyone's ratings got better. It was more that they would overpay for Bret Hart.
Well, yes, that was
and lose money.
And
that was the kind of thing because there was those favorite nation clauses.
Right, but it did amp up the Monday Night Wars.
I think it brought it to a halt at this time.
No, I don't think so.
Because if you think about it, this is 97.
Yeah.
3-4 months later, Stone Cold is the champ.
That's what I'm saying.
They don't look back.
No, but that's what I'm saying, though, is that there's still 3 or 4 months until WWE takes over in the ratings.
Okay? You're right.
So at that point in time, you're giving them Bret, they're going to shell out a bunch of money, and then shortly thereafter, WWE just starts crushing them, and it never stops.
But see, the financial thing about it is deeper. So are you familiar with the favored nation clauses that they all had? Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, maybe more, but they had favor nation clauses, meaning that whomever WCW signs, no matter how much money it is, that those guys make just as much.
Yes, I did know
So
that.
all of a sudden, if Bret Hart goes over there for $8 million a year and those guys are making $6 million, guess what? Now there's 4 guys making $8 million a year.
Right.
So WCW just threw away Bret's 8, 2, 4, 6 on the other guys. $14 million, right? Yeah. Extra a year. So that's why there's conspiracy around it. And quite frankly, if there was, brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolute brilliant.
I mean, Vince is a genius businessman, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
I just don't think I just don't think so. Like, I just don't think they planned it that way.
All Brett would have got out of it was more money, and I think to him it meant more the way he looked more than what he was going to get paid.
Him being such a mark for himself is more important than money.
I think
because that's why he signed that long-term, not expensive deal in the first place, because it wasn't that lucrative. He could have went and made more money.
But he was going to be on top.
He was going to be on top. He was going to be a hero. He was going to be on the Mount Rushmore of WWE. And I'll tell you what, I don't think Bret Hart is on the Mount Rushmore of WWE.
I think there was definitely a time when he was. I think right now it's so hard to say because there's been so many great moments and people who have come through those doors since then. But I think for sure at that time he was a shoo-in for it.
But that's the way he was looking at it. Then he would have been Bret Hart would have been basically Triple H right now.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like he would have been backstage helping out in charge. But then again,
Bret screwed Bret.
But at the same time, just to say this for my own, just to get it out there, Bret Hart to me is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And I love his matches, and I still study them. I just thought that he had a shit attitude.
And then people will say that all the time. Technically, Bret Hart's one of the greatest wrestlers. Yes, but he's more than that.
Yeah.
Great talker.
Well, he became a great, at first probably not.
Okay, 90s Bret Hart.
Yeah, when he started doing the heel in America and face everywhere else, put a mic in his hands and I'm invested.
Yeah, but it was back then too. It was just his character was corny.
Oh, he was a generic babyface.
Yeah, but he was good at it. But think of we always think of carrying, but we've mentioned this before, and Christ's sakes, we're approaching the 30th anniversary of this at some point, but his whole feud with his brother.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
Absolutely. And there's no doubt about Bret's staple on the wrestling business and on the wrestlers that exist today. You look at guys like FTR, Edge, Christian, like all those guys love Bret and got into this for Bret. I knew that was coming.
It took me a second there. The light clicked on. Yeah, well, and also because he's Canadian.
Well, yeah.
That had a lot to do with all that.
But when I think of Bret Hart, he had some classic matches, and they all stand the test of time. I could watch them now, and I could still learn things. And, I'm not completely shitting on Bret Hart and saying that Shawn was great and Bret was trash, because that's not the case. They both had a very good, stance to say I'm on top.
Well, you can boil it down like this for this, and we still haven't even explained what's happening, actually.
No, we haven't.
So it comes down to Bret's leaving, and when you leave on your back, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even in the business, I just know that.
Yeah.
You leave on your back. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. I know technically he didn't leave, but
yeah,
who's on his back?
You're right.
Right? Who was on his back? Let the people at home know.
Hogan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels. Who was on their back, right?
Flair, yeah.
Shawn Michaels versus who was in retirement? Undertaker, right?
Undertaker, yeah.
Who was on their back?
Shawn.
Undertaker versus Roman Reigns.
Yep.
Right?
Taker, yeah.
Robbie Vegas versus Delson Alexander. Who
Never happened. Never happened. Actually, I beat him at Excite last month.
Oh, that is
Excite
true.
Wrestling in Binghamton, New York. Shout out.
So all of a sudden, Bret's last match. What's his stipulation?
No. Can't lose in Canada.
Can't lose in Canada.
A whole country.
Whole country.
Yeah. That would be like Shawn saying, I can't lose anywhere in America. You know what Bret would say? You don't fucking live everywhere in America.
Exactly. So then it turns into like why, from the podcast, Bruce Pritchard and whatnot, who Bruce Pritchard this time was, up Vince's asshole.
Yeah.
Like just everything. Well, can't we take it off the night before or, a different night? But this is the pay-per-view match that's selling.
Right.
So you can't do that.
Right.
People bought the pay-per-view for this. Well, why? What if we make it a three-way with Stone Cold? Then you're going to ruin Stone Cold for the next WrestleMania run. Obviously, he was the guy.
Right.
That's where that was going. And also, he just broke his fucking neck.
Right.
So,
right, exactly.
You couldn't do that either.
And then to come down to it, so they now, we don't know how much of this part is true, but apparently they buried the hatchet that morning, shook hands, and Bret had a feeling that something was going on. So he talked to Earl Hebner, who was the official, and said, don't let this happen to me. Earl said he wouldn't. And I guess Bret and Shawn shook hands and said, bygones be bygones. And the match happens. Bret slaps on a sharpshooter. Shawn reverses the sharpshooter. Vince McMahon came out, told the ref to ring the bell.
No, Earl did, though.
Yeah.
Earl didn't. Oh, that's right. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to put it in there. Vince looks at Earl, says, ring the fucking bell.
Yeah.
Earl tells the bell guy, the timekeeper.
Boom, boom, jumps out.
The bell guy.
Yes, the bell guy. So, and Shawn does a very good job of looking pissed off. He sits up, what the fuck is going on? Grabs the title, doesn't even celebrate, storms off, whatever. Brett,
Which he also probably was mad.
He probably
You don't think
was.
he wanted this to happen?
Yeah, no, I'm sure that Sean wanted to beat Brett.
He's an ego guy. He wanted to beat
Brett, right? Brett destroys ringside, thousands of dollars in equipment ruined, and yeah. Paints WCW in the sky, spits in Vince's face.
A nice fucking loogie, too.
Nice one, and like a rocket. And then basically knocks Vince unconscious in the locker room in front of his son.
And a few other people.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's like extreme. Then all of a sudden, obviously, all the Canadians are mad, all his family. Of course.
His family, yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
And from what I get from it, Vince is just like, you guys can be mad at me all you want. This is what happened. If you don't want to come in, don't come in. So they don't come in. Okay. So, okay. And he even, from what I heard from everything, he even offered them their releases if they want.
Yes.
Out of the contract. And Owen wanted to stay.
Owen stayed.
He wanted to stay too.
Yep.
He felt, actually, I believe, obviously we don't know, but I believe Owen felt like, well, maybe it's my time now to like get out of my brother's shadow. It's perfect. And I believe he gave Owen a new deal too.
Yeah.
Keep him.
And I
don't think he gave a fuck about the Bulldog or Neidhart.
Well, they ended up coming back.
They did.
Bulldog specifically had a pretty decent run later, years later. But they did initially go.
Yep.
But
and then of course, speaking of Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Mr. Everything needs to be perfect for the boys,
Mm-hmm.
If you break it down to like what it is, your fucking boss, the guy that signs your paycheck, told you to do this.
Yeah.
You fucking do it.
Yeah.
You fucking do it. That's it.
It's the same as any other job. And people forget that wrestling is a job to these guys. This is a business. It's a business to me.
Yeah.
Wrestling is a business to me. And I make business decisions with my wrestling. I don't go out there just going to play in the sandbox with the other kids. Like, this is a dangerous business, but it's something that we all got into knowing we can get hurt, we will get hurt, and that we want to make money.
Yes.
Those are the things that we get into this for. I want to make money, and I know that I'm going to get hurt, and I know this is dangerous. This isn't just for me to fuck around. Take it very seriously. You don't think these guys with multi-million-dollar contracts in WWE take it more seriously than even I do?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Well, maybe.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So it's like, how are you mad? I don't understand how Vince can screw anybody.
Right.
I guess, if it's in his contract of creative control, fine. But it breaks down to the point of like, he's the boss of the company. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, this is where he wants to go.
Yeah. And he was really just asking for that one night. Like, that was it. Just this one time. Can you do this one thing for me? And to be honest with you, Vince made Bret Hart. So like,
absolutely.
He gave him a shot. He took a chance on him. He was the first smaller guy that Vince really let run with it.
It went from Macho Man to Hogan to Warrior to Hogan to Undertaker to Ric Flair to Bret Hart. Who the fuck is Bret Hart?
That's what I'm saying.
At that
Vince
time.
really took a chance on Bret and pushed him. And obviously Bret went from heavyweight back to Intercontinental back to heavyweight.
Sure.
But you know what?
That's okay.
Bret was also like the first triple crown winner in WWE.
I believe the first King of the Ring.
Was he the first one?
I believe so. Then Owen.
Oh,
right?
I don't remember.
Well, actually, they had those as house shows. But anyway,
yeah,
that's the thing. So it's like any term, like, Vince didn't have to give Bret anything. He just, he saw who he was and how great he was.
Yeah.
He respected the fuck out of his father and his family and all that stuff. And he rolled with him.
Yeah.
I've said from day one, all you Bret Hart stands, that Owen was better. And I'm going to hold that to my grave. And unfortunately, we never got that Owen Hart run.
Yeah.
But we should have in 94. We should have. But I digress. But Bret Hart got everything, you're right, because of Vince. Tell me, if I have one sound clip to surmise Bret Hart's career in WCW, it would be...
Oh my God, it was brutal. The only match that sticks out obviously the Goldberg one, because that's when he got hurt, but his match with Chris Benoit at the Kemper Arena where Owen died.
Who?
I forgot.
Who's that? Who?
Crispin.
Wah.
Crispin Wah.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
At the Kemper Arena where Owen died was probably his biggest thing that he did in WCW.
And honestly, it's not ringing a bell.
No?
I mean, I'm being honest. I'm not even being a dick.
Well, I mean, I'm in the business, so I study things differently.
This is what I remember about Brett's WCW career. I remember him showing up
Talking shit.
way too late.
Yeah.
Like, he showed up in, like, January.
Yeah, it was a long time.
And he was released right after. He could have
Yeah.
went the next day, which he should have.
Yeah.
I remember him not wearing pink at that time, and it was kind of weird. He wasn't wearing pink.
I remember him. Didn't he
Right
walk
away.
out? He walked out in like an Oilers jersey or
He
something.
was just, so I remember that. I remember him, I think, getting speared by Goldberg, but he had like a chest plate on.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember him getting kicked in the face by Goldberg.
Yeah.
But I remember him having the U.S. title and the championship, right?
I think so, but don't quote me on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. Like I said, that's where we were.
Well, Vince knew that WCW wouldn't know what to do with a guy like Brett, and that's why, and Brett knew that, and that's why he initially turned them down when they had approached him previously to stay in WWE, because again, in WWE, he knew he'd be on top. He knew he'd be used properly. In WCW, he'd make more money, but he would flounder. And, essentially that is what happened.
And literally give it 2 years later, almost to the week, you've got better Canadian superstar Chris Jericho coming over. Younger, better,
Good looking.
I just think it was
Likes
like
better music.
Right, of course. So it's just like Brett's time was done. He was done. And as sad as it sounds, I mean, he was the old man then at 42 or whatever, but that's old then.
Yeah.
That's old then.
We've focused a lot. Well, yeah, for that time period it is. Now it's not.
Yeah.
Things have changed drastically
Absolutely.
with ages and whatever in not just wrestling, but everything.
But even if you put it in his perspective, he's what? CM Punk's age?
Yeah.
You don't say CM Punk's young.
I don't think he's old.
But exactly. So like he's where like say CM Punk is now, right? At that point. So it's like that's definitely the back half of your career.
Yeah.
Easily. You're on the back nine. So
I mean, yeah, as a professional wrestler for sure.
Yeah. So and especially at that point. So it was like, I don't know, it just he had a move, he had to go. And Vince was silly to give him that deal, but Vince felt pressure at that time because like he couldn't lose Brett. In the middle of that. He couldn't lose Brett. That's the thing is he could not lose Brett in 96 when the NWO started all this.
Right.
Stuff. But like shortly thereafter, like when Stone Cold, Awesome 316, maybe I could lose Brett. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was the difference. Stone Cold was the difference. I'm sorry. It had nothing to do with Shawn.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've talked quite a bit about what was wrong and what was going on Brett's end, but we haven't really touched on Shawn.
Because I don't think he matters.
I don't think, and that's what I was just going to say. Shawn he wasn't a factor here. Like, that could have been anybody in Shawn's place. But
just because it was Shawn. No, it couldn't have been, though, because of their personal
well, that's what caused this. But
other.
what I'm saying is, had that been anybody else, had Brett had animosity with somebody besides Shawn, if it was Taker or Diesel or Kane or, fucking, I don't care. If it was Barry Hardy, I don't give a shit. Like, that same scenario would have happened.
I believe so. I believe it was just amplified because it was Shawn.
Yes.
Shawn threw barbs that Brett had sunny days, which he's claiming that Brett was cheating on his wife with Sunny when I believe Shawn was doing that. And everybody knew it. So, dick move.
I think that Shawn also did, but I think Brett did too.
Well, Shawn, there's no doubt about it. Shawn also did, but Brett has never admitted to that.
Sonny says he did.
Oh, well, she's a very trustworthy, believable person.
You love that one.
Nah, bruh. But she's so there's that. Then, okay. We forgot the big catalyst of it. I forgot. The week when they announced that was going to happen, from multiple sources, Brett goes up to Shawn and says, Shawn, how's that? Does that?
It was not bad.
Okay, so we'll play a role. Okay. Shawn, I know that we're wrestling and we have a lot to talk about, and I just want you to know that you're safe with me, and whatever they do and ask me, I'll put you over, no problem. I have respect for you.
Yeah, that is what happened.
And then Shawn says,
well, Shawn basically said, fuck you.
Shawn said, that's great. I don't have a Shawn.
I wouldn't do the same for you.
I wouldn't do the same for you.
Yeah.
I can't do a Shawn Michaels.
And now, mind you, that's from Brett's point of view. Shawn says that's
from a lot of that's from a lot of what I heard. But then again, that could be all based off of Brett's point of view because who was in the fucking room?
Right.
But it's hard to believe Shawn because he was a fuck face then.
He was. He absolutely was.
So,
Shawn had a lot of demons he was battling. And for being such a young, good-looking, up-and-coming, I can't even say up-and-coming, he was on top.
He was the man.
And he was, 30 years old? Like, you want to be on top of a big company like that at 30 years old, and, his ego took over. And he knew he was good.
Well, he had plenty of problems with drugs.
Yeah.
And women.
But he knew he was good. he knew that when that bell rang, there was nobody touching him. I personally,
except maybe Brett, and that's why there's animosity.
But at the same time,
we all know you're a Sean guy.
Yeah. At the same time, it was so divided. Like, again, there was the Sean guys and there was the Brett guys. And the Brett guys will tell you that Brett was the better wrestler, and the Sean guys will tell you that Sean was the better wrestler.
And you're splitting hairs.
But I was just going to say, but at that point, does it really matter? Yeah. They're both on top. Whether he's got the belt or he's got the belt, they're chasing each other.
And they're both not necessarily drawing crazily.
Right.
At the time, it was the low point.
And for Brett being the older one, they were still both good-looking guys. Mm-hmm. They were still relatively built the same. Sean might have been a little more cut.
You know, we get a lot. Sean gets a lot of love for his looks, but Bret Hart was a good-looking dude. Like, I think my mom liked Bret Hart.
A lot of moms liked Bret Hart back then. A lot of moms probably still like Bret Hart. But Bret Hart's Bret Hart's dating younger these days.
Oh, jeez. Where did this go? This went off the rails. Quickly.
I'll tell you what, though. The Montreal Screw Job plays a very, very vital role in wrestling's future, any way you slice it. It does continue to usher in the Attitude Era, and we've said that multiple times that Brett was helping to usher that in. He wasn't there to see the big boom of it because of the Montreal Screw Job, but there were certain moments in his career that started to take the WWE in that direction, and same for Sean. Sean was really pushing the envelope at this time with the raunchy stuff that he was doing and saying on live TV. Vince was constantly getting threatened that the network was going to drop them if Sean didn't stop doing certain things.
And we do forget, we didn't even mention once why this is going on with the Canadian thing. That's the birth of DX.
Yes, it is.
All during that time.
Yeah.
And that's the original with Sean, with China, Triple H, and Rick Rude.
Yes.
And then Rick Rude leaves the company right after this.
Yes.
Because of this.
Yes. And I still remember that when they came up with that name, they're up on they called it the Titantron at the time. I don't know if they still do. But Sean and Triple H are sitting there and he's like, would you say that our generation gets a bad rap? Would you say you're a degenerate? And Triple H gives him a little like... And Sean says, because I know I'm one. And Triple H says, well, then I have to be. And then they take Generation X and become D-Generation X. And that was it. Like, the history books are written from that point forward.
Well, but I believe even the week before it, I believe Brett called them a degeneration.
Yeah.
They're like a bunch of degenerates.
Yeah.
And that's where, it stemmed from there.
Yes, it did.
And like, it's crazy to think that just about the time, maybe the same pay-per-view or just about the time that Brett's going on, somebody else is coming in.
It doesn't matter what.
So, like, they're looking at their future. You got Stone Cold. You got The Rock. They knew The Rock was going to be The Rock.
The Rock debuted at Survivor Series 1996.
Oh, the year before.
Yeah.
That's right. So the same time frame.
Yes.
Within that.
That's when the new stars
decisions
were building.
So in 96, the year before, you had the Rock debut. You had the Stone Cold promo. Mm-hmm. Like, you kind of have your eyes on where the future's going.
Yes.
They're already pushing Stone Cold by the end of 96 or 97. Yes. The Rock's they have their eye on The Rock. I mean, from the day he walked out of the curtain. So all of 96, the guy's building up. People are hating him because he's getting forced down their throats.
100%, yeah.
Because that's where they're going to be. So it's mostly the Bret Hart marks that are hating him.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because Bret's losing his spot. Mm-hmm. And that's what they want to be. And like, wrestling fans are still the same way.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they really are. So it's like, it's interesting to see because it was Bret Hart in another generation. The year before, the generation before was Macho Man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just never number one.
Yeah.
But like great wrestler, great at everything, but never number one.
Because Hogan.
And everybody, a lot of the marquee people will hang on every word that Macho's the greatest at that point. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Bret, coming in. So it's just like the Mar crowd needs that person.
Yeah.
They need the anti-Hogan, the anti-Shawn,
yeah,
the anti-John Cena, right? That which was CM Punk.
Yeah, and none of those guys were bad wrestlers or bad for the business. They were all making money. Yep. They were all doing their thing. And again, there needs to be multiple people on top. There needs to be. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they ever win the title doesn't matter. That really doesn't. They need multiple people on top.
Who is the number 2 right now?
I don't know. I mean, if he didn't go out injured, it probably would be Cody.
Well, I would think that Roman's on a different level.
Roman is on an entirely
He's just like, there's Roman, he'll get his, and then like, it's everybody else. It's probably Seth, right?
Seth McIntyre comes to mind. I mean...
But Cody's going to be the guy.
Cody's going to be the guy, yeah.
And I feel that. And he deserves it, I think.
He sure does.
And I used to not say that. Mm-hmm. But he deserves it. And it's just like, they built something cool right now with Roman. And They didn't have that then.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to find the hot hand. And Shawn Michaels, you're not drawing. Let's give it to Brett. Brett, you're not drawing. Okay, we got to figure something out. We need to get rid of one of you. The 30-year-old guy or the 40-year-old guy?
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
okay, 40-year-old guy. You got to go. You know, the guy that's costed me, the good-looking 30-year-old guy who wrestles great, or the good-looking 40-year-old guy who wrestles great, that's more money.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Right. Yeah,
it was a business decision.
It was. And again, that comes back to what I said. Wrestling is a business. It's not just for you guys to watch and be like, oh my God, so fun. Like, it's a fucking business.
Especially at that time when they're hurting.
Right.
They're the farthest thing from hurting
Right.
now.
If McDonald's wants to get rid of the McRib, then they're going to get rid of the McRib.
God
And Brett was the
dang.
McRib.
And that's the show, folks. Thank you, everybody. Remember, McDonald's screwed Brett.
Yeah. And Sean was that 40-piece family pack.
Oh, my goodness. I got to give you this for that. You won that.
Sure did.
That might have been your best joke of all time.
It might have been in 3 years of this podcast.
Jeez, wow. 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Hi, Pickles.
Pickles, all my pickles.
Still running around.
She got to make it. She's probably on camera.
I still think, though, that the screw job itself ended up being good for the business for WWE. Vince went on to become one of the most hated heels of all time. It stemmed from his stuff with Brett. I will say that the next year when they did the screw job again at WrestleMania 98 was in poor taste. It was stupid. That didn't need to happen. They did it with The Rock and Mankind.
No, it wasn't WrestleMania. It was Survivor Series. You said WrestleMania.
Oh, did I? I meant to say the next Survivor Series. Literally the next one. It went from 97 to 98 and they recreated that spot.
I think that's fantastic.
They were looking for cheap heat.
And they got it.
Not necessarily. The Rock siding with Vince McMahon was all the heat they needed. They didn't have to do it screw job style.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
That was harsh.
Pickles, come here. Come on camera. Nah,
But
bro.
Sean for years denied, ever even knowing about it. It wasn't until he became a born-again Christian that he actually admitted that he did know about it.
Well, I believe that was on Vince's request.
Yes, it was. Vince said he didn't want anybody to take heat for it but him because he could take it, he can handle it. He was the owner of the company. It was Vince's 100% decision to do so.
Well, and so from different podcasts, they all have said the same thing, that from the people that, like Jim Ross didn't know it was happening, and Bruce Pritchard didn't know it was happening. So when they got with Vince, like, what the fuck? Why didn't you tell me? Or The Undertaker,
Yeah.
why didn't you fucking tell me? And his response to all of them was the same. What's up, Pick? What's up, Pickles? That's not what he said.
Pickles, all my pickles.
What he said was, he's like, you guys didn't know about it, so you guys would never have to answer for it. This was all on me. I did this to protect everybody.
Yes.
And it's including his, HR person, Jim Ross, and his right-hand man, Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah, and I mean, and this whole problem between Brett and Sean started with Brett having a problem with Sean, the way that Sean was in the ring doing like the stripper kind of sexy boy thing. Brett thought that wasn't appropriate, and that's where this all started.
Well, because, Brett was bringing the backstage heat on camera.
Yeah.
And then I guess Vince was just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah, and years later after the screw job, so Sean admits knowing about it. Brett does eventually come back to WWE, and they send him off what could be considered appropriately, all things considered, with his health and all that shit. But they do a rivalries DVD.
Yes.
And that's the first time him and Sean sit next to each other and actually talk about their careers because they cross paths a lot.
Oh, they were both tag team guys.
Yeah.
They were both intercontinental guys. They've probably had 50 pay-per-view matches.
Yeah, there was even matches that were on that at the time it came out on DVD and Blu-ray because the network didn't exist. But there were matches on there that were never before seen.
Yeah.
The first ladder match WWE ever had was Sean and Brett.
Yep.
In 92, I believe.
Because Brett claims, and no one refutes it, that they came up with the ladder match in Calgary.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's why they were practicing it.
Which he was mad about because he told Vince that anytime there was a ladder match, Brett had to be involved because he owned it.
But then again, in Bret Hart's words, he's wrestling Owen, winning the title, and going to be in the ladder match with Razor at WrestleMania 10.
Well, no,
right?
he's saying don't do a ladder match unless I'm involved. So technically, he was mad that Sean and Razor got a ladder match because Brett said that he owned the ladder match. Exactly, but he did say that. That's a real thing.
But he also owned wrestling.
And he admits to saying that to Vince. Yeah. Just that's not something that's not hearsay or rumors. Brett straight up said the ladder match was his.
And Chris Jericho came up with Money in the Bank?
Chris Jericho invented everything.
But seriously, though.
No, he did. Money in the Bank,
And
yeah.
I think the elimination, or he had something to do with the elimination.
Something to do with
but
it,
like, came up with the Money in the Bank. He doesn't sit around and say shit like that.
I know.
Like, it just, Bret Hart is such a fucking mark for himself.
Yeah.
He ruins himself for me. I used to like Bret Hart. I used to like him. And I mean, I still think he's a great wrestler, but literally, like, I know it's a joke, but literally, this is all I hear from him 24/7, anytime about anything whatsoever. That's what you get from Bret Hart. It's just so annoying, and it's the same thing with Mick Foley.
Yeah.
It's 100% the same thing with Mick Foley. A guy that I used to think was like tough as nails, I realize is the most sensitive, just little, like, I just can't with these guys anymore.
I know. And I mean, they appeal to the people who are, they like those crybaby, like, I don't know. I don't understand how that's appealing.
And think about like the Shawn Michaels, Mr. Born Again Christian, Mr. Douchebag Supreme in the 90s. Shawn Michaels is the first person now that will tell you how shitty he was and how much of a... I've never heard anything like that from Bret.
No.
Bret sits on his pedestal and acts like everything, poor, woe is me, everybody picks on me, and I was never the guy, and blah, 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 and I'm the greatest wrestler of all time.
Sean literally says, I was a piece of shit back then. I was a fucking asshole. I was hard to work with. I drove people crazy. I was battling demons. I had a drug problem.
Right.
Like, he straight up will sit down and tell you all of that.
And Bret is a consistent, woe is me. I made none of this problem for myself.
Yeah.
Everything just happens to me. Fuck me. The world's against me. Fuck Vince McMahon. And it's, it had all this like effect on all these crazy Mark fans that are like that now.
Yep.
All fucking 1 million of you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bret.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
I mean, think
buddy.
about it though. Like, if anybody was put in that position, if I was going into a match with somebody and they said, I can't lose in the United States, I'd be like, the fuck you are? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Or anywhere. I don't give a shit what the radius is.
And this is WWE. This isn't like Tommy Dreamer coming into when you wrestled and saying, like, I'm not going to get pinned. That's different.
Right.
It's different at that point.
Yeah.
No one wrestler is bigger than WWE, and Vince has proven that time and time again.
Yeah.
And for Bret Hart to even think he was at that point is just absurd to me. He was just smelling his own bullshit.
Well, what proves that he wasn't is that he made no impact in WCW.
None.
Nowhere. And if you were that, if you were transcending of WWE and you were the guy and you were on top and you made that company, then anywhere you went, you should have made.
Right.
And he didn't.
No.
So
he was living off his own bullshit that he started. The whole bullshit with Dave Meltzer. I mean, everybody knows he was the leak in the 90s.
Yeah.
To everything. In the
yeah.
dirt. So that was him because Meltzer jerked off all over him. Mm-hmm. And now it's the same thing where Meltzer jerks off all over a lot of these guys. And they think their shit don't stink. And AEW is a fucking shit show right now.
Yeah, people, there's a lot going on there, and a lot of their dirt is leaking out, and a lot of the bad things that are going on is coming out. And for people to try and defend that, then you don't understand the business, and you don't understand what goes on backstage. I'm sorry, but like some of that stuff is just not okay. And for that to be leaking out and people to defend it makes no sense.
Because it's just about burying. Well, it's not even about burying Vince anymore because he's gone.
It's 2022. It's just everybody's offended, everybody's sensitive, and everybody wants what they want or it's bad, and I'm going to cry. Like, the world was never like that as far as I recall growing up.
Well, in their world was because the king was Bret Hart.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, that has so much to do with...
Some of the people listening to this weren't even around for that. Like, they're going back. Like I told you, in locker rooms, I hear guys that are like, I was born after the Screw Job.
But put it like this into these scenarios, okay? So if that's... If we're saying this all about Bret Hart then, so this next generation of fans, that's like where Kenny Omega is right now. And the Bucks, like 40.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, that's where they are. And CM Punk. So, like, so it's the second generation of the crybabies.
Yeah.
And it's what it is. And it's just learned from Bret Hart. And it's not like a personal attack of these people, but they just think that that's how wrestling is and that they deserve everything. And it's just annoying.
Wrestling owes you nothing.
No.
It doesn't owe me anything. It doesn't owe them anything. And we're on two completely different levels. But guess what? It doesn't owe anybody from the top to the bottom a damn thing.
Just chewed and spit out Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Make your own way. Do what you got to do. Work hard. Like, there's no sense in complaining and politicking and all this stuff. And half the fans don't even know what that means.
Right.
Like, they just hear it in dirt sheets and in shoot interviews. And they're like, oh, backstage politicking. Bro, you don't even understand what goes into backstage politicking or what
I
it even
don't.
is. Nobody does.
And I've said it.
Unless you're in the business, you don't know. So don't tell me you've been watching wrestling for 30 years or 40 years or 15 years or 10 years and you know what goes on backstage. You know what they let you know. Because even the guys who leak stuff like Meltzer and the dirt sheets and guys who talk backstage news, they don't even give you the whole fucking thing.
Well, they're not objective.
Right.
That's the thing. It's there. So if you look
That's
at,
right. They don't give you the whole thing.
yeah, if you look at like Meltzer maybe a little bit. Meltzer, even though we shit on him, has a little bit more integrity than some people. Just like a pinch where like Sean Ross Sapp is just completely like one-sided. It's ridiculous. And on the same token, even though he's left the wrestling media, Brad Shepard, because of all his death threats, because of reporting wrestling facts, because wrestling fans are moronic, his is 100% the other way.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's no objective, that's not the right word. There's no objection. You know what I mean? There's none of that. And it's just like, and I know that's a microcosm of all media when you talk about politics or whatever, but just sticking it in wrestling, it's just the same way.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It just matters what's the story, what narrative you want to push, and that's it.
Yeah.
And there's no truth. Like there, and that goes back forever. There's that classic saying, there's three sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it breaks down to that. And that's why it's like, it's almost better now for things like the Screw Job, because you're kind of getting the real story, because it's so long ago in the past, nobody's really holding on to anything anymore.
Yeah, you're getting the real story with a lot of people that want to stake claim in it.
But you don't know which one's which.
Exactly.
So we probably know the real story.
I'm sure.
But we just don't know which one it is.
I'm 100% sure on that. And, you know, just to like try and bring this back around and wrap it up, I kind of think that the Screw Job might have been a good thing for wrestling in general, because look at the boom that just happened afterwards.
I don't think that's arguable.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. Like... And it's like, it seems like that's what they want to recreate nowadays. Like, it seems like everything nowadays wants to have that, like, backstage realityness. But that was just so organic and natural.
Yeah.
Or was it? But
right.
That was the thing. Like, that it was so organic and natural. And, like, it's just even, like, stupid little things. Like, CM Punk, he's leaving. Oh, my God, he won the title. He's walking out with the title. Okay.
Right.
Oh,
right.
That wasn't planned.
Well, and that was the thing too, is, you know, what happened shortly after the Screw Job, it just in regular pop culture was reality TV.
Yeah.
Which was kind of starting at that time too. So it became like, well, we do things reality style and people bite on that because that's what they want. So to take a storyline like you said with CM Punk, it became like, well, I have to see what happens because CM Punk just walked out with the WWE title. Like, motherfucker, he signed a contract long before.
Right.
And you idiots believed that he was holding out until he was going to find out if he beat Cena or not.
And Vince McMahon let him have that pipe bomb promo. Vince McMahon was running through the back to tell him to cut off the microphone.
Right.
Right. Not sitting right there with his finger on the fucking button.
And that's what I was just going to say. Vince McMahon literally sits in gorilla position all night long. Had he wanted that promo to stop, it would have stopped immediately. So everybody's like, pipe bomb. He did all this stuff he wasn't supposed to do. At any point in time, Vince could have shut it off. Let that sink in. 20 feet away, because, mind you, Punk is sitting on the stage. Behind that black curtain, right behind Punk, Vince was sitting there the whole fucking time. Let that sink in.
Right. So maybe Vince didn't write the promo. We're not saying that. Vince let him go off and say it, maybe. Maybe it was true words coming out of CM Punk. Or maybe Vince wrote it. Or maybe.
Right.
But it doesn't matter, because Vince could have just said, you know what? That's all I had for it. All right. You know what?
Yeah.
That's it. You're done. You know what? Nah, bruh. We're out of here.
He easily could have done that. Easily. But you know what? The fact that they cut his microphone off when Raw was going off the air should tell you that it was what we would refer to as a worked shoot.
Boom. Y'all got worked, you marks.
And some indie wrestlers got worked too. Like, these guys want to believe so badly that was because their god, CM Punk, said this was the real deal. And, when, afterwards, and he left the company and he went on and ran his mouth about how those were his true feelings.
Like 3-4 years later, by the way.
Yeah, later, yeah. Because then he became the top-selling fucking merchandise guy and got millions of fucking dollars in his bank account, which he claims he was so abused and used and treated like crap when he became fucking rich. Right. Literally became rich because he was allowed to cut a promo, allowed to do it on live TV. And
there's no proof it's not scripted.
No, there's no proof of anything.
What about the camera cuts too? Remember, like when he was like, when he said like, what was it, high cult or something?
Yeah.
What did he say? And He turned to a fucking camera?
At the exact moment, and the camera cut to show him waving into it.
Are you kidding?
Right.
Like, come on, people. Be smarter than that. How did we get... Because they're the most two, like... I guess I would say the Montreal Screw Job and this are the most two, like, backstage kind of thingy. Yeah. But, like, I don't find this backstage at all. I think it's more important when he left the company because of the doctors and all that stuff. That's more backstage drama.
For sure.
Because you know what he did? He actually left.
Yes, he did.
He didn't work the boy. He worked everybody. He worked everybody.
Yes,
Good
he did.
for him. And that's a professional wrestler. But
yeah.
CM Punk, it was Bret Hart 2.0. And now it's like most of AEW guys. It's just like, it's weird.
Well, I'll tell you this. The screw job did happen, and whether it was a shoot or whether it was a work, you know, you could have your theories on that, but I'll tell you, it created one of the biggest booms in wrestling history, if not the biggest boom in wrestling history. It spawned one of the, you know, the top star, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin. You could argue that it's The Rock, but Stone Cold still holds the record for the highest t-shirt sales of all time.
Either way.
But either way, it spawned them both, you know, and it was on the screw job and Brett leaving that those guys started coming up.
And like it needed to happen, and it was lightning in a bottle.
It was,
and everyone was going to try to catch it again, and you can't. But I think you and I both agree that in one silent statement,
Brett screwed Brett.
Right?
Yes,
it's 100% here. We are buyers into that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So. I think that's a good note to end this on.
Yeah, it was fun to be back. Thanks for coming out the studio.
Yeah, it was fun to not have to do my own setup. I just came and used yours.
Yeah, mine's a lot more.
Yeah, you got shit everywhere.
To like get in here, but it's cool. Everything seems to be working. Well, everybody, thanks for having me back. So all I got to say to you guys is
yeah, I do. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on the All Bets Are Off podcast. We will catch you next week.
Peace.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.